The 40th floor was dead silent. James Allen stood in his dirty work uniform in front of Danielle Gadberry, the most powerful woman in the city. She hadn't called anyone to her office like this in 3 years. Not with that look in her eyes. "Why does your daughter call me Mommy?" she asked. The whole building heard it. A 5-year-old girl screaming Mommy in the elevator, reaching for a CEO who hadn't smiled in years. James didn't look away. He stared at the woman behind the glass desk and said, "Because she doesn't remember what a mother looks like. She only remembers the pink shoes her mother wore the night you killed her. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far our stories reach and how they resonate across the globe." Danielle Gadberry's hands shook as she stood at the window of her 40th floor office. 20 minutes earlier, a little girl had called her Mommy in the elevator. The girl wore pink canvas sneakers with white rubber toes. Danielle recognized those shoes. She had seen them 3 years ago on a rainy night when her car hit a woman in a crosswalk. Danielle had driven away without stopping. Now that woman's daughter was in her building. The intercom buzzed. Danielle's assistant said James Allen was here. James Allen was the night shift maintenance technician. He was also the little girl's father. Danielle told her assistant to send him in. James walked into the office wearing his oil-stained uniform. He was tall and thin with dark hair. His face was hard, but his eyes were calm. Too calm. Danielle asked him why his daughter was in the building. James said the daycare fell through, and he had no one to watch her. He kept her in the mechanical rooms, but she escaped. Danielle asked why the girl called her Mommy. James didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a photograph and placed it on Danielle's desk. The photograph showed a woman with brown hair and kind eyes. She held a little girl. The little girl wore pink shoes. James said the woman was his wife, Sarah. She died 3 years ago in a hit-and-run accident at 5th and Madison on October 12th at 9:47 p.m. It was raining. The driver never stopped. Danielle felt sick. James continued talking. He said his daughter Lily was 4 years old when it happened. She watched her mother die in the street. Lily didn't remember much, but she remembered the pink shoes. She also remembered the car. A black Mercedes with tinted windows and Illinois plates. Danielle owned a black Mercedes with Illinois plates. James said Lily remembered something else. The woman driving wore a white coat and red heels. Danielle looked down at her feet. She wore red heels. The same red heels she wore every day for 3 years. James smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. He said Danielle wore the same shoes every day like she was punishing herself. Or maybe she just forgot. James told Danielle she killed his wife and left his daughter standing in the rain next to her mother's body. Danielle started crying. She said she didn't know the woman died. She thought maybe she was just hurt. She panicked and drove away. She was going to call for help, but she couldn't face what she did. James said he knew this the whole time. He took the maintenance job 2 years ago to get close to Danielle. He watched her. He learned her schedule. He waited for the right moment. James pulled out a USB drive from his pocket. He said it contained photos of Danielle's damaged car from the repair shop. It also had traffic camera footage showing her license plate near the scene. He had witness statements. He had everything he needed to destroy her. Danielle asked why he waited 2 years. James picked up the photograph of his wife. He said after Sarah died, Lily stopped talking for 6 months. The doctors called it selective mutism from trauma. James became obsessed with finding the driver. He quit his job and spent all his savings on a private investigator. It took a year, but he finally tracked down Danielle Gadberry, the Ice Queen CEO. James said he wanted to destroy Danielle. He wanted to take everything from her. Her company, her reputation, her freedom. He wanted her to suffer like he and Lily suffered. But if he went to the police, there would be a trial. Lily would have to testify. She would have to relive that night over and over. James couldn't do that to his daughter. So James took a job at Danielle's building instead. He watched and waited. He looked for other evidence or other crimes. But Danielle was clean, except for the murder she committed 3 years ago. James said the word murder very clearly. Danielle said it was an accident. James said she left his wife to die in the street without calling for help. He asked what she would call that. James put the USB drive back in his pocket. He said he wasn't done with Danielle yet. He needed to figure out what was best for Lily. She was the only thing that mattered. James walked to the door. Before he left, he turned back. He said Lily called Danielle Mommy because she saw the red heels. Lily didn't remember Danielle's face. She didn't know who Danielle was. But some part of her recognized those shoes. The same shoes her mother saw right before she died. The door closed. Danielle was alone. She looked down at her red heels. Then she took them off and threw them in the trash. She would never wear them again. James Allen pushed his maintenance cart down the hallway of the 40th floor at 11 p.m. The building was mostly empty. A few workers stayed late in their offices, but they didn't look at James when he passed. Maintenance workers were invisible to rich people. James learned this in his 2 years at Gadberry Holdings. He could walk anywhere. He could enter any room. Security guards nodded at him. Executives ignored him. He was just a maintenance man who fixed broken things. No one knew he was hunting their boss. James stopped outside Danielle's office. The lights were on inside. She was working late again. She always worked late. James studied her schedule for 2 years. She arrived at 6 a.m. every morning. She left at midnight. She rarely took breaks or vacations. She was running from something. James knew what it was. James knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He used his master key to unlock the door and went inside. Danielle wasn't at her desk. The office was empty. James walked around slowly. He had been in this office dozens of times over the past 2 years, always when Danielle was gone. He searched her files. He read her emails. He checked her trash. He found nothing that could help him. Danielle Gadberry was careful. She kept no personal records at work. No diary. No confession. The only evidence of her crime was a USB drive in James's pocket and the damaged Mercedes in her private garage. James walked to Danielle's desk. A framed photo sat in the corner. It showed a younger Danielle with an older couple. Her parents probably. They were all smiling. The photo was old and faded. James picked it up and wondered if Danielle's parents knew what their daughter did. Did they know she was a killer? Would they still love her if they found out? James put the photo down. On Danielle's desk was a red notebook. James saw it before. She wrote in it sometimes when she thought no one was watching. James opened it. The pages had numbers, financial projections, meeting notes, and business plans. Nothing personal. James flipped through the pages. Near the back, he found something different. A list of names and organizations and charities. The list said, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, $50,000. Road Safety Foundation, $75,000. Trauma Support Services, $100,000. The list went on with dozens of donations, all to organizations that help victims of car accidents. James stared at the list. This was new. He never saw this before. Was Danielle trying to buy forgiveness? Did she think money could erase what she did? The door opened behind James. He turned around. Danielle stood in the doorway. She wasn't wearing her red heels anymore. She wore flat shoes. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. Danielle asked what James was doing in her office. Her voice was quiet, not angry, just tired. James held up a red notebook and said he was looking for answers. Danielle walked in and closed the door. She said James wouldn't find any answers. She didn't keep records of what happened. James said no, but she kept records of her guilt. He pointed to the list of donations and asked if this was how she slept at night. Did she write checks and pretend it made up for killing his wife? Danielle flinched. She said the donations didn't make up for anything. She knew that, but she had to do something. She couldn't just pretend it never happened. James threw the notebook on the desk and said blood money was her solution. Danielle's voice rose. She asked what else she was supposed to do. She couldn't bring Sarah back. She couldn't undo what happened. She spent 3 years trying to find a way to make it right, and there was no way. Nothing she did would ever be enough. Danielle was breathing hard. Her hands shook. James never saw her like this. The Ice Queen was melting. James said she could turn herself in. Danielle asked what would happen then. Would she go to prison? For how long? 5 years? 10? 20? What would happen to her company? To the 5,000 people who worked here? What about their families? Their mortgages? Their children's college funds? James's voice was cold. He asked what about his family? What about his daughter? What about the future Sarah would never have? Danielle had no answer. James walked a window and looked out at the city. Somewhere down there, Lily was sleeping in their small apartment. The babysitter was watching her. James paid her with money he barely had. Money he should have been saving for Lily's future. James said he brought Lily to work today because he couldn't afford the babysitter. Did Danielle know what that was like? To be so broke you have to hide your child in a building's mechanical room? After Sarah died, James had nothing. Medical bills wiped out their savings. The funeral cost more than James made in 6 months. He lost his job because he couldn't focus. He couldn't pay rent. They almost ended up homeless. A 5-year-old girl almost ended up on the street because Danielle was too selfish to stop her car. Danielle whispered that she was sorry. James said sorry didn't feed his daughter. Sorry didn't pay for her therapy. Sorry didn't give her back her mother. Danielle asked what James wanted. She told him to tell her what he wanted, and she would do it. James walked back to the desk. He pulled the USB drive from his pocket and held it up. He said he wanted justice. He wanted Danielle to pay for what she did. Danielle told James to give that drive to the police. Turn her in. Destroy her. Wasn't that what he planned for 2 years? James closed his hand around the drive. He said it was. But then something happened today. Something he didn't expect. Danielle asked what. James said Lily smiled. For the first time in 3 years, his daughter smiled like she used to. He said it happened when Lily saw Danielle in the elevator. When she called her mommy, Lily was happy. Really happy. Like she found something she lost. Danielle's eyes filled with tears again. James said he didn't understand it. He didn't understand why Lily connected with Danielle. Danielle was the woman who killed Lily's mother. She was the reason Lily was growing up without a mom. But for some reason, when Lily looked at Danielle, she saw something good, something safe. Danielle said she didn't deserve that. James agreed. He said she didn't. But Lily didn't know that. Lily was 5 years old. She didn't understand death. She didn't understand justice. All she knew was that she saw a woman who reminded her of her mother, and it made her happy. James put the USB drive back in his pocket. He said he had a choice. He could destroy Danielle and give Lily justice. Or he could let Danielle live and give Lily something she hadn't had in 3 years. Hope. Danielle asked what James was going to do. James said he didn't know yet, but he needed Danielle to answer one question. And he needed the truth. Danielle asked what the question was. James looked at her and asked if she could go back to that night. If she could change what happened, would she? Danielle didn't hesitate. She said yes. 1,000 times yes. She would give anything to undo it. She would trade everything she had. Her company, her money, her freedom, all of it. If she could bring Sarah back, she would do it in a heartbeat. James studied Danielle's face. He was good at reading people. 2 years of watching taught him how to see through lies. But Danielle wasn't lying. Her pain was real. Her regret was real. James said okay. He would think about it. He opened the door and left. Behind him, Danielle collapsed into her chair and buried her face in her hands. James pushed his maintenance cart down the hall. He pulled out his phone. He had a message from the babysitter. It said Lily kept asking when James was coming home. She wanted to tell him about the nice lady she met today. James put his phone away. He had a decision to make. But not tonight. Tonight, he just wanted to go home and hold his daughter. Listen, if you're still here, it means you're invested. You want to see what happens next. But here's the reality. Most people watch stories like this and scroll away without subscribing. They enjoy it, then vanish. If this story actually matters to you, if you genuinely care about how it ends, hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. Otherwise, you'll probably forget this channel exists and miss all the other incredible stories I share. 3 days later, James stood outside Danielle's office at 8 p.m. Most of the building was empty. Through the glass wall, James could see Danielle at her desk. She stared at her computer screen, but James could tell she wasn't really working. James knocked on the door. Danielle looked up. Fear crossed her face for a moment. Then she nodded and gestured for him to come in. James entered and sat down in the chair across from her desk. It was the first time he sat in her office. James said he made a decision. Danielle's hands gripped the arms of her chair. She asked what it was. James pulled out a folder from under his jacket and placed it on her desk. The folder was thick and full of papers. James said this was everything. Police reports, witness statements, photos of Danielle's car, security footage, repair records, everything he collected over the past 3 years. Danielle stared at the folder like it was a bomb. James opened the folder and spread the papers across the desk. There were photos of a black Mercedes with front bumper damage. There were traffic camera images showing Danielle's license plate 2 blocks from the accident scene at 9:45 p.m. on October 12th. There were repair shop invoices dated 3 days after the accident. There was a statement from the mechanic who fixed the car. He remembered it because Danielle paid cash and asked for no paperwork. There was also a witness statement from a man who was walking his dog that night. He saw a black luxury car speeding away from 5th and Madison right after he heard a loud crash. He tried to get the license plate, but it was raining too hard. All he saw was that it was an Illinois plate. James said he had enough evidence to convict Danielle of vehicular manslaughter and leaving the scene of an accident. She would go to prison for at least 10 years. Maybe more. Her company would collapse. Her reputation would be destroyed. Everything she built would be gone. Danielle said she knew. James asked if she was ready for that. Danielle said yes. She was ready. She had been ready for 3 years. Every day she woke up and expected police to knock on her door. Every night she went to bed wondering if this was the night they would come. She lived in constant fear and guilt. Going to prison would almost be a relief. At least then she would be paying for what she did. James said that was interesting because he had been thinking a lot over the past 3 days. He asked Danielle a question. Did she really want to make things right? Or did she just want to feel better about herself? Danielle looked confused. She asked what James meant. James said Danielle's donations to charity were nice, but they didn't help his daughter. They didn't help Lily deal with the nightmares she had every night. They didn't help Lily when she asked why her mommy never came home. They didn't pay for the therapy Lily needed. They didn't put food on the table or pay the rent. James said if Danielle really wanted to make things right, she needed to do more than write checks to faceless organizations. She needed to actually help the people she hurt. Danielle asked what James wanted her to do. James leaned back in his chair. He said he had a proposal. Danielle would not go to prison. James would not give the evidence to the police. But Danielle would do 3 things. First, she would set up a trust fund for Lily. Enough money to pay for her education, her therapy, and her living expenses until she turned 25. Second, Danielle would step down as CEO of Gadberry Holdings and create a foundation to help families affected by hit-and-run accidents. The foundation would provide financial assistance, legal help, and emotional support. Third, Danielle would personally meet with Lily once a month, not as the CEO, not as the woman who killed her mother, just as someone who cared about her. Danielle stared at James in shock. She asked why he would make this deal. Why wouldn't he just destroy her like he planned? James said because of what happened in the elevator 3 days ago. When Lily saw Danielle, something changed in his daughter. Lily smiled for the first time in 3 years. She laughed. She asked questions. That night, Lily told James about the pretty lady in the white suit who smiled at her. Lily said the lady reminded her of Mommy. James said he realized something then. Lily didn't need revenge. She needed healing. She needed someone who could help her remember the good things about her mother instead of just a bad thing that happened. And for some reason James didn't understand, Lily felt safe with Danielle. James said there was also a practical reason. If Danielle went to prison, James would get nothing. The legal system would take years. Lawyers would get most of the money from any civil lawsuit. Lily would have to testify and relive her trauma. But if they made this deal, Lily would be taken care of immediately. She would have financial security. She would have therapy. And maybe, just maybe, she would have someone who could help her heal. Danielle asked what James would tell Lily about her. Would he tell Lily that Danielle killed her mother? James thought about this for a long time. Then he said no, not yet. Maybe when Lily was older and could understand. But for now, James would tell Lily that Danielle was a friend who wanted to help them. Lily was 5 years old. She didn't need to know the whole truth yet. Danielle started crying. She asked if James really believed she could help Lily. After everything she did, after destroying their family, did James really think she deserved a relationship with his daughter? James said no. Danielle didn't deserve it. But Lily deserved a chance to heal. And if spending time with Danielle helped Lily heal, then James would put aside his own anger and pain. He would do anything for his daughter, even make a deal with a woman who killed his wife. Danielle asked what would stop her from just running away. She could leave the country, disappear, start over somewhere else. James smiled and held up his phone. He said he had copies of all the evidence in 3 different locations. If Danielle tried to run, James would go straight to the police. Danielle would spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, waiting to be caught. Danielle nodded. She understood. She asked if James had written up the terms of their agreement. James pulled out another document from a folder. He said his lawyer prepared everything. The trust fund, the foundation, the meeting schedule. All Danielle had to do was sign. Danielle picked up a pen. Her hand shook as she signed the document. When she finished, she looked up at James and asked one more question. She asked if he would ever forgive her. James stood up and put the signed document back in the folder. He said he didn't know. Right now, he just wanted what was best for Lily. Forgiveness was a conversation for another day. Maybe in 10 years. Maybe in 20. Maybe never. James walked to the door. Before he left, he said Lily's birthday was in 2 weeks. Danielle was invited to the party. It would be just the 3 of them. Cake and presents in James's small apartment. Nothing fancy. Danielle said she would be there. James left the office. Danielle sat alone and looked at the empty folder on her desk. Everything that could destroy her was in James's hands now. But instead of feeling trapped, Danielle felt something else. Relief. For the first time in 3 years, she had a chance to make things right. 2 weeks later, Danielle stood outside a small apartment building in a neighborhood she never visited. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No heels. No expensive jewelry. She looked like a normal person for the first time in years. Danielle carried a wrapped present under her arm. She spent 3 days picking it out. Nothing too expensive. Nothing that would make James suspicious. Just a simple gift for a 6-year-old girl. Danielle knocked on apartment 3B. James opened the door. He looked different in casual clothes. Less threatening. Almost normal. He stepped aside and let Danielle in. The apartment was small but clean. There was a couch with worn cushions, a TV on a stand, a small kitchen table with 3 chairs. On the walls were photos of James's family, photos of Sarah smiling, photos of Lily as a baby, photos of happier times. Danielle saw Lily sitting on the couch. The little girl wore a new pink dress. Her curly hair was pulled back with a ribbon. She looked up when Danielle entered and her face lit up. "The pretty lady," Lily shouted. She jumped off the couch and ran to Danielle. Danielle knelt down so she was at Lily's eye level. She said, "Happy birthday." Lily smiled and said she was 6 years old now. A big girl. Danielle said she knew, and that's why she brought a present. Lily's eyes got wide. She asked if she could open it. Danielle said yes. Lily tore off the wrapping paper. Inside was a children's book about a little girl who went on adventures with her mother. Lily opened the book and looked at the pictures. She said it was pretty. Then Lily looked up at Danielle and asked if Danielle would read it to her. Danielle said she would love to. James watched in the kitchen as Danielle and Lily sat on the couch together. Danielle opened the book and started reading. Lily leaned against her and listened. For a moment, James saw his wife. The way Sarah used to read to Lily every night before bed. The way Lily would cuddle close and hang on every word. James turned away and went to the kitchen. He cut 3 slices of birthday cake. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. Lily's favorite. When he brought the cake to the living room, Danielle was still reading. Lily was completely absorbed in the story. They ate cake together at the small table. Lily talked about her day, about her friends at school, about the picture she drew in art class. Normal 6-year-old talk. Danielle listened and asked questions. She seemed genuinely interested, not like the CEO pretending to care, but like someone who actually wanted to know about Lily's life. After cake, Lily asked Danielle to play blocks with her. Danielle said yes. They sat on the floor and built towers while James cleaned up. Every few minutes, James glanced over at them. He watched how gentle Danielle was with Lily. How patient, how kind. It made James angry. This was the woman who killed Sarah. She didn't deserve Lily's love. She didn't deserve to see Lily smile. But James made a promise. He promised to do what was best for Lily. And right now, what was best was giving Lily someone who made her happy. The party lasted 2 hours. When it was time for Danielle to leave, Lily hugged her tight. She made Danielle promise to come back. Danielle said she would. Once a month, just like they planned. James walked Danielle to the door. Before she left, Danielle said thank you. James asked what for. Danielle said for giving her a chance. For not destroying her. For letting her be part of Lily's life. She didn't deserve any of it, but she was grateful. James said Danielle needed to understand something. This arrangement wasn't for Danielle. It was for Lily. If Danielle ever hurt Lily or let her down, James would take all the evidence to the police immediately. Their deal would be over. Danielle said she understood. She would never hurt Lily. She promised. Danielle left the apartment. James closed the door and leaned against it. He felt exhausted. Seeing Danielle with his daughter was harder than he expected. But it was done. The first visit was over. Only 11 more months until the next one. Lily ran up to James and hugged his leg. She said she liked the pretty lady. James picked up his daughter and held her close. He said he was glad. Lily asked if the pretty lady would really come back. James said yes. She would come back every month. Lily smiled and said she was happy. James kissed his daughter's forehead. He said he was happy too. It was a lie, but it was a necessary one. 3 months passed. Danielle kept her promise. She visited Lily once a month. Every visit, she brought a small gift, a book, a toy, a puzzle. Nothing expensive, just something to make Lily smile. They would play together for a few hours while James watched. Then Danielle would leave, and James would feel angry all over again. But something else was happening. Lily was changing. She smiled more. She laughed more. She talked about the pretty lady at school. Her teacher said Lily was doing better in class. Her nightmares were becoming less frequent. The therapy was working. James had to admit that Danielle was keeping her promise. She didn't just show up once a month and leave. She actually cared about Lily. She asked about Lily's therapy. She wanted to know what she could do to help. She listened when James talked about his struggles as a single father. One day, 6 months after the first visit, Danielle made an announcement. She had officially stepped down as CEO of Gadberry Holdings. She created the Sarah Allen Foundation for hit-and-run victims. The foundation will provide financial assistance, legal support, and counseling for families affected by hit-and-run accidents. Danielle would run the foundation herself. James was surprised. He expected Danielle to fight him on this, to try to negotiate her way out of it. But she actually did it. She gave up her company, her position, her power, all to keep her promise. Danielle also established Lily's trust fund. $2 million set aside for education, therapy, and living expenses. Lily would never have to worry about money. She could go to any college she wanted. She could pursue any career. The weight that had been crushing James for 3 years was suddenly lifted. A year passed. Then, too, Danielle became a regular part of Lily's life. She attended school plays. She came to parent-teacher conferences with James. She helped with homework. She taught Lily how to bake. She became the person Lily turned to when she had questions about her mother. James watched this happen with mixed feelings. He was grateful for what Danielle did for Lily. The foundation helped hundreds of families. Lily was thriving. She was happy and healthy and normal. But James still carried anger in his heart. Anger that never went away. Anger that sometimes kept him awake at night. On the 3rd anniversary of Sarah's death, James went to the cemetery alone. He stood at his wife's grave and told her everything. He told her about Danielle, about the deal they made, about how Lily was doing, about how angry he still was. James said he didn't know if he did the right thing. He didn't know if Sarah would understand, but he did what he thought was best for their daughter. And wasn't that what Sarah would have wanted? For Lily to be happy? James heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Danielle standing there. She held flowers in her hands. She asked if it was okay if she visited. James said yes. Danielle walked to Sarah's grave and placed the flowers down. Danielle said she came here every year on this day. She would stand far away where James couldn't see her. She would apologize to Sarah. She would tell her how sorry she was. She would promise to take care of Lily. This was the first time she had the courage to come close. Danielle said she knew James would never forgive her. She didn't expect him to, but she wanted James to know that she thought about Sarah every single day. She thought about the life Sarah would have lived, the moments Sarah would have shared with Lily, all the things Sarah would never get to do. Danielle said taking care of Lily didn't erase any of that, but it was the only way Danielle knew how to honor Sarah's memory. James didn't respond. He just stared at his wife's grave. After a long silence, Danielle said she would leave. She started to walk away. Then James spoke. He said Lily asked him a question last week. She asked if her mommy would be proud of her. James said he told Lily yes. Her mommy would be so proud. Lily was kind and smart and brave. Everything Sarah wanted her to be. Danielle stopped walking. Tears ran down her face. James said Lily also asked about the pretty lady. She wanted to know why the pretty lady was so nice to them. James said he told Lily that the pretty lady made a mistake a long time ago. A bad mistake. And now she was trying to make things right. Lily asked if the mistake could be fixed. James said no. Some mistakes can't be fixed, but people can try to do better. That's what the pretty lady was doing. Danielle turned around. She asked if Lily understood. James said she was starting to. She was only 8 years old, but she was smart. One day, James would have to tell her the whole truth. But not yet. Not until Lily was ready. James said he still had the evidence. He still had the USB drive. He still had the power to destroy Danielle. But he also saw what Danielle did over the past 3 years. She kept every promise. She gave up everything for Lily. She dedicated her life to helping other families avoid the pain James and Lily went through. James said maybe Sarah would understand. Maybe Sarah would see that Danielle was truly sorry. Maybe Sarah would forgive her. James said he wasn't there yet, but maybe someday he would be. Danielle said thank you. James said don't thank him. Just keep taking care of Lily. Danielle said she would, for as long as James let her. They stood together at Sarah's grave for a few more minutes. Then they left separately. James went home to his daughter. Danielle went to the foundation office where 50 families were waiting for help. The pink shoes sat in a box in Lily's closet. Too small now. She had outgrown them years ago. But Lily kept them anyway. They were the last gift her mother gave her. Lily would never forget them. Or her mother. Or the accident that changed everything. But Lily was healing. She had her father. She had the pretty lady who came every month. She had therapy and friends and a future full of possibilities. The past would always be part of her, but it didn't define her. She was more than her trauma. She was Sarah's daughter, and Sarah would be proud. This story teaches us that some mistakes can never be truly fixed, but taking responsibility and dedicating your life to making amends is the only path toward redemption. When we hurt others, especially through our carelessness or cowardice, we must face the consequences with courage rather than running away. True accountability means giving up everything to help those we've harmed, not just feeling guilty or making token gestures. Forgiveness is not something we can demand or expect, but something that might come only through years of consistent, selfless action. Most importantly, when making decisions about justice and revenge, we must always consider what truly helps the innocent victims heal, even if it means setting aside our own pain and anger. The legacy we leave behind is not defined by our worst moments, but by how we choose to respond to them and whether we put the needs of those we've hurt above our own comfort and pride. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person, Dot. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My dad said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show him that these tales matter. Please subscribe to this channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. And here's what I need to know. Do you want part 2?